Hi, this is Suchi, and in our today's video, I am going to discuss about two functions in Python. One is filter and one is map, and which are going to be very useful in most of the tasks we will be performing in Python. So, without further delay, let's start. So, the first thing we are going to discuss is the filter function. So, what is the filter function? First of all, as I already mentioned, if we want to see the documentation of a function in Python, we can just use help and we can pass filter here. You can see what is the definition of this function. So now this is for you. You can check that. Let me tell you what it will do. So the filter function will take two parameters. The first one will be a function which will be used to filter out the data, and second part will be the data in a list format or any iterable format. So let us have some list first. Let us have some data. Let's say names. And we are having some names. I'm just putting random names over here. Let's say we have some names here and we want to filter out those names which are starting with P, let's say. So how we can do that? We can use the filter function. So if we use filter function, we can pass a function here as a first argument, and the second argument will be the iterable. So what will be our condition? The name should start with a P. So we can define a function here. Which will take one argument, which is a name, and it will check that if the name starts with a P, it does not need to have an if statement. We can directly return true or false. So there is this string method which is starts with. If we check which starts with, if the string is actually starting with this character or this substring, then it will return true, otherwise it will return false. So this is what our function is. So here we will have this function name, whatever name we are defining here. We can have anything. I have just put condition here, COND here. So I will put it here, and next thing will be the iterable. So this one. Now what filter will return? As you can see in the documentation, filter will return a filter object. So we can just see, we can just assign this to something. Filtered names, or let me just call it result. Now, if we check the type of result, we will see that this is a filter type. So here you can see this is a filter type object. Now, if we want to see that in a list format, we need to convert it into a list. So we can just add the list constructor here, and it will get converted into a list. So now we can check the type, it is a list, and we can print it to see the values. So here you can see our function is working perfectly. Now in our previous video, we talked about lambda functions, which is an anonymous function. So here you can see we are having only single line, single statement inside this function definition. And this single statement is getting evaluated and getting returned with this return statement. So this kind of scenario, we can easily use a lambda function. So what will be the syntax for a lambda function? Instead of using this function definition, we can directly use the lambda function over here, because we are just using it for the filter method. We may not need it anywhere else. We are just going to need it here. So we can directly have a lambda expression there. So how we can do that? We will just omit this entire thing. And we will write here the entire lambda expression. So let me write it. What it takes one argument, that is name, and what it returns true or false. So true or false is checked with this statement, starts with. So name dot starts with. So this is the lambda expression. This is the lambda function we are putting over here. And this should perform the same thing that this previous code was doing. So let us run this cell and print result as well. If you want to change this name, let us change this name just for our understanding. So here you can see this is returning the same result. So it is working fine as expected. So here we can easily use lambda function with a filter method. And if you feel that, okay, this lambda function I am going to need again also, then you know what to do. We can directly assign this to a variable, let's say condition. And now condition is an object and we can directly use it here. So it will perform the same thing. You can see it is performing the same thing. Now let us move into the next thing, which is map. So let us look into the map function, what map function does. Map function is basically used to perform some operation on each and every element of an iterable. We can involve multiple iterables as well. And map function returns a map object. Let me just show you the definition of map function. So here you can see the first parameter is a function again, just like filter. And then we can have n number of iterables, variable number of iterables, as we are using this star syntax. And what it is returning? It is returning a map object. So let me give you one scenario. Let us have one list of whatever it is, list of numbers. So let us say it's nums, and we are having some numbers over here. So we have few numbers here. And what we want to do, we want to multiply each element of this list with 2. We want to multiply each element of this list with a 2. So we want to double each element. How we can do that? We can easily do that using map. How? Let us see. So if we have a map function here, we have to, the first argument of map function is a function. So again, we have to define a function. Let me name it as double element or get double. And here what we will get num as an input, a number, and it will return number plus number, or it can return 2 into num, anything is fine. Now we have to use this function name as the first parameter of this map, and then we have to pass the iterable, that is the numbers. So again, let me just assign it to some variable, let's say res for result. Now if we look into the type of res, it is definitely going to be a map. So this is a map object. Now again, to convert it into a list, we need to use this list constructor. So here you can see that it has become a list, and we can directly print it and see what is there. I'm extremely sorry. Now you can see each and every element of this list have been doubled. So this is what we wanted. And here also, as you know, we can use lambda expression instead of using a function definition, because we are just going to need it once. We are not going to need it again. So we can simply write it here. Let's say lambda num, and it will return num plus num. So that is the return statement. Let us remove this. It will simply work as expected. If we want to apply map function on multiple lists or any other kind of iterable variable, we can do that. How we can do that? Let me just show you with two lists, nums1, let's say this is 10, 20, 30, 40, nums2, it might be something else like 1, 2, 3, 4. And we can have n number of iterable variables here. Not only two, we can have multiple things, like we can have another. So let me add another list here, nums3, which is having some other values, let's say 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So likewise, we can have any number of lists over here. And what we can do, we can have a map expression where I can have some operation I can perform. So let's say I want to multiply this with this and divide by the element of the third list. How I can do that? So I can expect that there will be a function. Let me call it condition, not condition, function 1, which will have three numbers, n1, n2, n3, where n1, n2, n3 will come from nums1, nums2, nums3, these three lists. And then what it will return? It will return n1 multiplied by n2 divided by n3. So that's it. So the first parameter to map will be func1 and then all the iterables. So nums1, nums2, nums3 will come here. Now if we will convert it into a list and assign it to our result, we can easily check what is there. So here you can see this thing. So as you can see, 10 into 1 is 10, divided by 5 is 2.0. Similarly, if we check 20 into 2 divided by 6 is giving us this value. We can check for the third one as well, 30 multiplied by 3 divided by 7. You can see this is the value. 40 multiplied by 4 divided by 8. This is the value. So this is how we can apply map over multiple iterable variables with a single function. Again, we can replace this with a lambda function. So let me just do that as well. Okay, let me do it in another cell. Let me come here and do this. So here we can directly write this lambda expression where we will have three variables n1, n2, n3, just like the function we have mentioned above. And the return statement will be having n1 multiplied by n2 and divided by n3. So this is what we are going to return from this lambda expression. Now we can run this and we can just remove this as well. And you can see the result is matching exactly. So this is how we can perform filter, and map. One more thing I just wanted to mention here, that is input. So how we can take user input? How we can take input from user? So we can use this method, input method. So if we use input method, it will expect us to give some input. So here you can see it is expecting us to give some input. And what it will return, as you can see, it is returning a string. So if we just assign it to something, let's say A, and let me print it. Extremely sorry. So if we even provide some numerical value, it is going to become a string. So if we just place type here, we can check that this is a string. So this is a string class. Now, if we want to prompt something to the user, that means if we want to give some message to the user, what we can do? We can add some message here. So let's say I'm typing enter a number. So in that case, user will be knowing what exactly they have to enter. So here you can see the message we have mentioned here, it is visible over here before the input box. And then if we just enter a number, we can see this is happening. Now, you might think that even if we are providing a number, it is taking it as a string. So what is the remedy? So the remedy is nothing but we can convert, we can typecast if we know what the user is going to enter. So if we know that the user is going to enter a number and that is a string, maybe integer number. So if we are saying insert an integer number, enter an integer number, then what we need to do is we need to convert it into integer and it will become an integer. Let me just print the type of A as well as the value. So let me just give 78. Here you can see the type is integer and the value is 78. So we just need to typecast it. Now, if the user is not entering an integer number and something else they are entering, what will happen? So it will throw an error. Here you can see it is saying invalid literal for int with base 10 because this is not an integer value. So let us just try. Now you might be thinking that if we just pass a float value, that will be converted into int. That is true. But if it is a string and a string that is not in integer format, then it will be throwing error. So as it is a string, it is not a float, it will be throwing error. But if we try to convert it into float, it will get converted. So if the user is going to input an integer only, then only we can use this integer conversion. In our next video, we will talk more on input and how we can use map and lambda function with input. That also I will show you. Thanks for watching and keep implementing.